Hello. Okay, so I'm going to very quickly cross-post this because I'm on Instagram and I'm also on Facebook, and I'm trying to do both of them at the same time. That's been working very successfully, so I'm going to continue to do that, but I want to make sure that everybody can hear me and see me because this particular live video has a structure to it. I even have a note card. This is weird. I usually don't have note cards when I do live videos. But if you're on Instagram, you cannot see the title of this video. So it's called Becoming Streamlined. And I'm going to talk about how I have been notoriously very messy my entire life. And to the point where my mother was always like stressed out about my life, like, oh my God, your room is a mess, like you can't ever find anything, and et cetera, et cetera. And the truth about me is that I happen to be a web thinker. I'm very creative and my brain is just like that. So for me to think organization is not organic or natural. My mom happens to be very organized, and so with me it was always like, why are you like this? Like, why is it so hard for you? And she really did not understand. And I didn't really either. And it wasn't until years and years later when I decided to start my interest in business and to really start opening several businesses, which started when I was age 21, where I realized like business and streamlining is really important. If you want to have success and you want it to feel fun and you don't want to constantly feel stressed out because you are running all over the place, like you're going to need to figure out what is going on quickly and make systems to help you do that. And that's part of being organized, which again, as I've mentioned, I am not naturally that way. So I have learned a lot in the years that I have been an entrepreneur and that I have been learning how to streamline my own life. I've studied a lot of people who are extremely successful and have really gotten down their life to a science of streamlining. And so I figured that I'd have 5 really helpful things to share with you guys as a public that would really, really make a big difference in your lives. So I don't understand why this went on my personal page and not on my business page. I don't know. So first of all, Facebook changed, and now I'm like, what is even happening? Like, anybody else feel that way on that platform? I'm like, I don't know where anything is. I don't know what's happening. So whatever, I'm just gonna rock and roll. Okay, so you'll also notice there's a new backdrop back here. I'm not in my office. I'm at my dining room table. I returned my desk. I have no desk in that room now, and I'm receiving another one in a few days, but that's been a thing, whole other life. Okay, so let's talk about these 5 things that I have picked out as being pretty characteristic of people who I experience to be as really, really successful. And that has really helped them become more organized and streamlined. Again, I'm not organically organized. So if starting a routine is really hard for you, you're gonna wanna stick around for this live. And if you know anybody who needs help with that, you're gonna wanna tag them or share this out with them. Also, there are some things that I'm going to refer to that I have like links for if you want to see what I use. So I will share with you some of my favorite things out of what I'm going to talk about in a list, and I'll put it in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, I'll link it in the comments so you can have direct access to it. Or if you're watching on Instagram, I'll do in my bio link, I'll add some of my favorite organizational material that you can pick up with direct links. So just FYI, I will include those. Okay, so one of the first things that I recommend you do if you're really struggling with staying on top of things in your life is to live in a book. What does that mean, to live in a book? Literally means to have a book that you live in. And for some people, that's a planner. For some people, it's just a notebook, a tiny notebook they keep in their purse or their bag. But have a place where you can document and write down the things that are going on in your environment at any given time. So one of the things I hear a lot of people talk about is having a place where they can thought dump. So whether you are doing it in the evening before you go to bed and you're thought dumping so that you sleep well and then wake up rested and know exactly what you need to do the next day, or you're doing it first thing in the morning so that you stay on task and then know what's happening in your day, or maybe you do both of those things just to clear your mind and then to set up your day. thought dumping is incredibly important. It's something that I think is really overlooked. And living in a book and actually having a place that you go to not just write appointments and task lists, but also to prioritize your day is super, super important. This is something that no matter if you are an entrepreneur or you have a 9-to-5 or you're a stay-at-home mom, it works the same way. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of things that we have to take care of in a day. And in order to avoid things falling through the cracks or you forgetting something or you feeling overwhelmed by something, having a place that you can live in. So sometimes during my day, if I feel really overwhelmed by all the tasks that I have to take on, I will literally just start thought dumping all the things I think I have to do. I will just put them in here, like stack, 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 stack. And then once you see it on paper, it changes the dynamic of the thing. It doesn't feel so overwhelming anymore because you can see it. You can actually see what needs to be done. And you're like, oh, okay, this makes more sense now. So live in a book, have a thing, hi Lisa, that you can refer to. And again, a tiny notebook, big notebook, a planner, whatever the thing is that you can constantly be in relationship to. To me, this has been like game changing for clearing my mind and always feeling like I know what I need to do. Also, what this helps you do, hi guys on Instagram, I see that you've joined. I can wave at you. What this has also helped me do is prioritize. So a lot of times we have a lot of things to do in our day, but we're not really sure about what the priority of those things are. So if you have a book that you live in and that you're writing things down in constantly, you can number them and prioritize them. Or like the reason I love the particular planner I use, which again, I'll link in the comments, is because it has that section for you already. Like what's your top 5 things you need to get done today in order to call it a successful day? And having the ability to do that means that no matter what, when you end your day, you know if you ended your day well and efficiently or not. So live in a book. That's my number 1. My number 2 is learn from books. So this is something that I really, really hone in on with my new coaches. So when I bring on new team members, new business partners, and I'm teaching them the business of online fitness coaching, one of the very first things I talk to them about is learning from a book. And that's actually one of the 4 pillars of my company is personal development. And there's a reason for that. There's a very specific way to use personal development. I think when people think about self-help, they're just like, oh, let me read a book that's going to help me feel good. No. If you really want to get the most out of your personal development, then read books for what you struggle with specifically. That's how you use personal development to your advantage. Hey, Kobe. So if you're someone that's struggling with consistency and habit building, then go read a book on consistency and habit building. I have a great book for that. I will link it in the comments. If you're struggling with learning how to build habits, read a book on that. If you're struggling with wealth management, read a book on that. If you're struggling with food, read a book on that. Read on what you need. And that is how you get the most out of PD. Reading books that make you feel good is awesome. And I love to read all about manifestation and all about law of attraction and all about metaphysical stuff because I'm super woo and that's what I'm into. But I've got that stuff down. Like I know that stuff. I just like to read about it and learn more about it. Okay. Hi, Jade. What I don't know is stuff like, what am I reading right now? So I'm reading one book on consistency, tactical consistency with habits, because I really struggle with that when it comes to like, again, my business and staying streamlined because I'm not an actually organized person. That's one place I struggle. I'm also reading one on focus right now because I discovered that I have adult ADHD, which is going to come up again in my next point, but I have adult ADHD. I did not know that about myself at all because I'm very high performing and have always been, but in females, it can show up differently than in like a dude. Like the way that they show ADHD or have symptoms of it, very different than for women, apparently. I didn't know that. But I really struggle to stay on task. So I'm reading a book on focus, specifically on focusing in my business on the one thing to like maximize my success, right? Because that's something that I have struggled with. So read for what you need. And if you consistently do that, you will learn so many new skills that are super applicable very quickly in a short period of time you will be amazed at how quickly you begin to change as a person just because of what you're learning. You're learning from experts in the field. Okay, so that's my number 2. Number 3 is bite-sized tasks always win. Back to my ADHD story of having adult ADHD. I get so overwhelmed by simple tasks. And I'll give you a very, very easy example of this. Clean my house. How many of you, let me see the hearts, let me see the whatever emoji you want to share down below. When you think about cleaning your house, you're like, ugh, that's like the literal last thing. Like you almost prefer to sit on like thumbtacks than clean your house. Like that's honestly, that's how I feel about chores because of my ADHD, I will literally be like, oh, I'm gonna clean this room. And then I remember this random thing and then I end up in this other room and then I never finished this room, but now I'm over here. And then I remember that the dishes and then I'm like literally all over. And then like, of course, yes, I'm gonna share Kobe a list of everything I'm talking about. So it's gonna be in the comments if you're on Facebook, and on Instagram, it's gonna be on my bio link of specifically the things that I recommend. So I get all over the place and it's very hard for me to stay on task. So in my business life and in my personal life, and I'm going to share 2 examples of what this is, I do bite-sized tasks in order for me to stay hyper-focused and actually do what I need to get done. So some of you might have been watching my stories a few weeks ago when I shared my chores list. I have a chores list. And every day I do 1 or 2 chores for my house. I do not clean my house in one fell swoop. I have things that I do. So for example, today was Friday. Friday is bathroom day. So I clean my bathrooms, and office day. I clean and organize my office, put things away that are out of place, dust if it needs to dust, sweep if it needs to sweep, clean up, basically, just clean up the space. And tomorrow is Saturday and Sunday. So my weekends are sort of together and I have a list of things I like to do. So I'll meal prep either Saturday or Sunday, make sure my litter box is clean for my cat, clean my floors, sweep and mop the whole house. And I think there's one more thing. Actually, I think those are the main 3 things. So I can do that either Saturday and Sunday, split them in between. Then Monday, I do grocery shopping because again, I meal plan on the weekend. Monday, I grocery shop, I do laundry, and I dust, right? So every day has some things that I do. And what that does is it prevents me from being like, oh my God, I have to clean my entire house right now. And then I just freak out. My brain just goes into panic attack mode, okay? Same thing happens for my business. I have an activities list, I can even show it to you, that our company actually created this list. I did not create this list, our company did, but it's brilliant and I give it to all my new coaches when they join. This is an activities list, right? Broken down by segment and by time. Like the company is so brilliant. They were even like, spend 20 minutes doing this, spend 15 minutes doing this. So I literally have a timer that I put on my desk, whether it's my phone or something, and I time myself. And when the timer goes off, I stop doing that activity and I do the next activity, right? And so this prevents me from just being in la la land of like reading this and scrolling here. I'm talking to this person for 3 hours or like I just get lost in like conversation and things. So I do it in my business. I have a system that I give to all of my new business partners so that they also learn how to stay on task and they're really efficient with their time. And I have it for my personal life, my chores. And when it comes to like bill paying, that's another thing that I do, which I can show you in here. Actually, this is where I keep all of like my life stuff. So I color code stuff too. I started this in college because it helped me focus. It's like a focus tool. Again, how did I not know I had ADHD? I don't know. So all of my bills are in red. And so I always put the day before they're due and I just put the amount that they're due. So I always check like, oh, tomorrow this bill is going to go out. Okay, for that amount. Okay, right? So those are all in there too. So I literally like bite size. I take my weeks 1 week at a time. I do little lists for all the things that need to get done and then I check them off. So my chores list is on my fridge in like a sleeve protector and I do a dry erase check off when all the chores are done. So at the end of the week, it's complete. I erase it and I start over on Monday. Bite-sized tasks. This prevents overwhelm. So when you're taking on a project, break it down into the little tasks. and then check off the tasks as you go. It works literally for everything. So my taxes are crazy because I've had like 4 businesses in 2019. So I'm literally like, oh God, all these papers are everywhere. What do I do? So what did I do? I do what I do with everything else. I wrote down all the things that I need. I put all the things that I already had in stacks. Like, these are my husband's things, these are my things. And then I wrote down, this is what I need that I don't have. And now when I pick up the stack, I know exactly what I need to go find. So that is a practice that has evolved into every facet of my life and has made my life so easy. So little bits at a time. This very efficient. Really efficient people do this as well when it comes to their bigger projects, bigger tasks. All right, number 4, habit stack. Okay, habit stacking is something I learned from a very specific book, which I will again include in here. And the whole book is on habits. So if you really want to understand how habits are formed and how you build them, break them, rebuild them, you're going to want to read that book. But habit stacking means that you take a habit at a time and you really get that down, and then you start stacking habits on top of it, right? So when it comes to fitness and weight loss, because that's the world that I work in, a lot of times my new clients will come in and they'll just try to do everything. They're like, I'm going to work out 6 days a week and I'm going to become a chef and I'm going to like throw out all of my junk food and I'm going to like become, like they try to take on everything at once, and then they're like, super overwhelmed. Like, they go from having no habits that are healthy to trying to get all of the habits that are healthy. That does not work. I'm just telling you right now, don't do that thing. You're gonna regret doing that. So what I have them do is habit stack, and I'll have them start with something, get a routine. Like, first we'll address your food, for example. Like, here's a program for your nutrition. Start doing these small videos, use your workbook, move through this nutrition program so you can understand your relationship to the nutrition program. Then we're going to start you exercising. Once you have that down and you really get that, then here's your fitness program. Some of my clients, I start opposite, depending on what their needs are. I'm like, okay, you're going to start exercising. This is your program. This is the schedule you're going to be on. And then we'll look into this, right? Everybody starts in a different place. It's totally client specific, but I habit stack with them because I know that's the most efficient way to create a whole streamlined system of habits. I've learned that from myself. Okay. So one of the articles I was recently reading about habits is it takes about 66 days to form a really hard habit. That's the newest research that's coming up. It's like 60 days, 66 days really begins to cement a habit and make it a strong habit for you. So that being said, if you're trying to start, I don't know, reading, and you're like, okay, I want to start reading books every day, at least like 10 minutes a day, and then I want to start also like cooking dinner every day. Like, don't start those 2 things at the same time. They're unrelated. Don't start them at the same time. Like, start with reading, right? Like, in the evening before you do whatever, like, you're going to sit down and you're going to read 10 pages of a book. Do that for 60 days. Seems like a long time. Kind of is. But that's where you need to start. And when you have the habit of doing that, then what you can do is, because you already have the habit of reading, is right after you read those 10 minutes or 10 pages, you'll go cook. If you're not used to cooking dinner, right? That's habit stacking. And then you'll read and then you go cook, and you read and then you go cook. And after you do the cooking for 60 days after the reading, now you have 2 habits built into each other. You're going to read and then you're going to cook. Okay? So you slowly start stacking them, and that's how you build brand new habits. That's the easiest way to do that, because you start associating them in your mind, you start building the neural pathways for them, and they start to become interrelated and more organic. Okay? And the 5th one, the final one, is about incentives, incentivizing yourself to perform. Now, this one is tricky, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes the things you think will incentivize you do not. Or sometimes the things that incentivize other people, you're like, oh, I will just gift myself this if I do this consistently, or I develop this habit or whatever, but it doesn't really excite you. I learned this the hard way with like my business, for example. When I started my business, one of the conversations that my upline had with me was about finding my why for this business. Like, why did I really want my fitness business to work? What was my drive for it? And I think that's a very important question. But it took me almost 4 years to really figure out what I wanted out of this business. I thought it was like financial freedom, and which I do, it's important and awesome, or paying off debt, or but in the beginning, what really incentivized me was there's this big trip that our company gives out as a reward, and any coach from any rank can attend this trip. You just have to perform a certain amount or whatever, like certain amount of points that you have to earn. We have a point system. So I was really incentivized by that trip, and I made that trip like the thing to earn, and I did earn it. And that was like amazing, right? But then after that happened, I was like, okay, well, now what? How do I incentivize myself now, right? And I struggled really. Like I no longer had a benchmark for really, and our company does really well with recognition. They're huge on that. So they're constantly giving you gifts and gym bags and backpacks and water bottles. And you guys see me share all this stuff. Like I get free shit all the time from my company because they're so big on recognition. But that didn't, like, earning that didn't really like excite me. And it wasn't until I quit bodywork and moved here, and suddenly I'm home with my son more, and I'm seeing my relationship with him evolve and change and become a deeper relationship now that I'm home with him. And I was like, this is my why. This is why I want this business to work and why I want to be home, because I am seeing the difference that it makes for me to be really hands-on with my kid. Might not be for everybody, but for me, being really hands-on with him has made a world of a difference in my relationship to him. So discovering that has really given me this new sense of drive to perform. And so you need to really figure out what it is that incentivizes you to lose the weight, to work out, to have the business that you want, to, I don't know, whatever the thing is. Like, what is the thing that really incentivizes you to perform? And sometimes you gotta dig deep. Like sometimes you really have to like dig in there to figure, because it took me years to really figure out, why the hell do I want this business to work? Like, why do I want the financial freedom? Why do I want the freedom from debt? Why does that matter to me? Right? And it wasn't until I really got in there and my life circumstances really altered that I realized, like, wow, that's actually very important to me. Hi, Maria. All right, Kobe has a question. Can habit stacking create a need to do things in a structured way and have a meltdown if the structure gets off for any reason? I have personally not seen that because of my personality. I am someone who, I'm realizing that I give myself a lot of grace very easily. Like if I, for example, if I have a structure going and all of a sudden like I fall off the bandwagon of my structure, I don't tend to stay in that like, for very long. I have learned to just kind of let that go and pick myself up. And I think that's part personality and part experience of having a lot of trial and failure in my life, which I've done a lot of. So if you are that person, then that right there is indicative of internal work. So if that triggers you, if you're trying to build something new, and I see it in my son, right? Kids are such a good example of this. My son right now is learning how to write letters and numbers, and he has a very, very hard time with certain numbers. And I'll have him repeat them and repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. And he gets so frustrated that he can't get it right, that he can't figure that out. And I see that, and I see it in adults, right? So when you're building new habits and you're habit stacking and all of a sudden you fall off the habit wheel, you've got to know that's completely human. You have to understand that's part of being a human being. You don't have that habit. So of course, you're not going to nail it every single time. Just like my son has never written numbers before or letters. So he's not going to know how to write all the numbers and letters right away. I don't expect him to know how to do that right away, but he gets so frustrated, right? Because he can't figure something and he's not good at something right away. And this is where you have to parent yourself. Like this is where you really have to be like, Kobe, I see that you're trying to do this thing. You don't have it down yet. And that's okay. We're going to try this again tomorrow. We're going to pick up this habit right where we left off, and we're just going to give it another go. This is where parenting yourself really is important. And how would you speak to the 3-year-old who's really trying to figure that out, right? Like what if, Kobe, one of your sons was trying to learn something and he continued to be super frustrated about it? Like what would you say to them? That's what you need to say to yourself. Yes, Kobe. So speaking about your son that has autism, habit stacking is really, really powerful for children, period. But especially if they get stuck with like what comes next, or like if having an expectation of what comes next is soothing for them, which I do see in the autistic children that I've worked with, yes. Like, habit stacking allows them to have an expectation of what comes next. And so it keeps them really centered. It keeps them really like, oh, okay, I know this comes next. This comes next. This is why small children thrive on habits. It's habit stacking, right? But we call it a schedule. It's a schedule for kids, but this is why it works, because they know what's coming next. So then they have this like, and then if something is going to change and they can't necessarily follow the habit stack, then that's where you communicate with them. Like, hey, today, this habit stack is not going to happen because we're going to a party or because we're taking a trip. So instead of doing this habit stack, we're going to do this thing. And as long as you communicate, I've found that they respond very well because they know what's happening. If you're not communicating that, they will probably freak out because they don't know what's happening. Hey, Jessica. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. Hi, Abby. Welcome. Okay, so I'm just going to recap the 5 things that I shared real quick, and I'm happy to expound on any of them. So if you're on live and you have questions about anything that I've talked about, like Kobe is asking, please feel free to ask. Again, all of the resources that I've talked about, I will share below. My personal favorite things of all the things, books, planners, notebooks, whatever, I'll share them. So first thing is living in a book, meaning a notebook or a planner that you live in, that you process through, that is like your best friend. It's almost like having a slam book with yourself. If you're not 30, you have no idea what a slam book is, but it's fine. When I was young, we had these things. There were composition notebooks that we would swap with our friends. We'd write letters to each other. Okay, it was a thing. Just dated myself. But you could have a slam book with yourself and it works. Number 2, learn from books. Use personal development. Read what you need. Don't read what makes you feel good. Don't read what you love. Like, and a lot of people in the spiritual community are like, I'm going to read all the books about crystals, and I'm going to read all the books about like LOA, and I'm going to read all the books, which is cool because that's what you love, but that's not what you need. You need to read books that you need. Like, what are you terrible at? Keeping a routine, a habit, like sales. What do you suck at? Read that book. Do you know a book or where I can find a schedule for business like you have from your business? I spend too much time on websites or other things like you mentioned. You could create your own task list for your business. Off top of mind, I don't have one that teaches you how to schedule that, but I do have a few that might help you get clarity on that. So Maria, let me dig into my arsenal of books. I'm going to put a note. I'm going to write this down, and then I will send you a message. I'm going to write it down right now. Cool. Hey, Samantha. All right, so where was I? Live in a book, learn from the books that you need, please. I know you want to read about what you love all day long, but that's not how you're going to grow. You're going to grow by reading the things you're not good at. If you're not good at sales, if you're not good at conversing with people, you're not good at making new friends, you're not good at habit building, you're not good at organization, you're not good at, read those books. You don't want to read them. I know you don't, but you need to read them. They're really important for you to grow as a person. Bite-sized tasks always win. Break it down. Break it down. Take the project, break it down. It's really, really important that you don't feel overwhelmed, because as soon as you go into overwhelm, you shut off. What happens the moment you feel the overwhelm is you just check out and you pull away, and that completely, it turns you off from being able to be efficient. And you really need to learn how to stay efficient even under pressure. That's one of the primary things that highly successful people have down, is staying efficient and staying like present even when they feel pressure. And part of the reason why they can do that is because they break things down almost instantaneously in their mind of like, okay, here's what has to happen next. Okay. Number 4 is habit stacking. Learn how to build a habit at a time, and then use the habit you've built to help you build another habit. It's almost like building a little staircase for your habits. It's such a useful way to build habits, and it really helps you build. You can build a whole day that way if you really focus on that. Huge yes for me right there. Efficiency killed by the abstraction of the big picture. Yep. Sam, that's a creative component. Like if you happen to be a creative person, this is going to speak directly to you. So feel free to share this or tag anybody you think would need to hear this, because creatives by far and large really struggle with the minutia of being organized. My husband is the complete opposite. He's very logical. He's a manager for Home Depot, and he is so good at like, this needs to get done, like giving lists and doing tasks, and he's like a master at that. And I'm just like, my brain doesn't understand. Like, so I have had to study from people who are excellent at this. And I have literally eaten up books just on like habit formation and organization. And I've also interviewed people in my life who are really organized. Like my best friend Sable, who happens to be my business partner and we run our team together, she's really organized. So I'm always asking her questions. Like I'll go into her kitchen and I'm like, how do you organize these straws? Like, how do you do this? Like, how does that happen for you? And she's like, oh, I just fold it like this. And I do it. I'm like, huh, genius, take notes. Like I do that everywhere I go. I'm constantly learning from the people who are better at something than me. And I've paid coaches just because they're so good at something that I'm not good at, and I just want to be around them. Like I've literally given them money to be like, okay, just let me hang out with you and like learn how you do this thing, because I have no idea how to do it. And then I learn from them and then move on, right? So whether it's books or hiring people is not on the list, but it's one of the things you could do if you're willing to make the investment. Is the easiest way is to hire someone who's really great at something that you want to learn. They will tell you all the things. I actually had a friend of mine hire me for 2 hours one time so I could teach her how to organize her business finances, because she had no idea what she was doing. She was making all this money and it was like crazy mess. And she was like, I'll pay you $200 to sit down with me and teach me how you do whatever. And I was like, all right. So she hired me and I walked her through her whole business model and organized it for her. Done. Now she knows. She's got that skill set, right? So part of being in the world of wanting to be successful is being willing to invest in either a book or a course or a person that can give you the thing that you want. If you're not good at it, you don't have that skill set down, or interviewing the people in your life who are good at that stuff. Like if it's your best friend, in my case, right? I also ask my husband, like, how do you organize this? Or how would you approach this? Because he happens to be very good at that stuff. So habit stacking and incentives, but really figuring out what incentivizes you. Like what really deep down motivates you to get anything done? What is that thing? Right? So what motivates you to have a clean house is, or it could be different than what motivates you to have a very profitable business, for example, or what motivates you to be a good parent could be different than what motivates you to be a really good partner. You know, it's going to be different for different arenas of your life, but really figuring out like, what is that thing? And then even breaking that down a little bit more and figuring out what can incentivize you to get certain tasks done. So for example, I have a goal for myself for this month in my business. Hitting that goal means I get to take myself on a spa date. So like get my nails done and get my hair done. And so that's really exciting for me because that's something that I have wanted to do for a while. It's a small thing I can give myself. So having small things that incentivize you and then larger things that incentivize you will help you stay on track. Okay. Hopefully this was very, very, very helpful. This is my love gift to you guys. Thanks for spending some of your Valentine's Day time with me. But I do love my audience. I really spend a lot of time thinking about how to curate material that's really beneficial and helpful for you guys, that will give you a new experience of reality or life, and take a lot of my own experience and pour it into you guys. Real quick, because some of you that are on are joining our bar group that starts Monday. If you are one of those people, or you have an interest in starting that bar program you see me sharing on my stories all the time, those crazy fitness moves that have given me amazing abs, gotta give credit where credit's due. Elise Joan made an amazing program. Then shoot me a line, because this is the final weekend to sign up and get into that bar group. So I can help you do that. Oh, thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Kobe. I love you guys. I hope that this helps your life and improves the quality of your experience of reality. That's always my goal with teaching. And if there's something you want to learn from me, if there's a live video you'd like me to make that I haven't made, please let me know. I'm always open to receiving those requests and filming things that are going to be really valuable to you guys. All right, I'm going to go curate that list of things I promised so I could put it in the comment section. And then you guys will have access to my favorite planner and my favorite books for all the things that you guys are needing help with. All right. All right, my loves. Bye. Have a good evening.